Leading off our discussion tonight is Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He's the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Raskin, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We were going to run a little clip of video at the end of what you just heard of Donald Trump saying that he might also rename the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, thereby giving historians all the more they might need to declare him clinically insane, as I'm sure history will. Let's go to the real breaking news of the night, which is the federal judge in Boston.
Can I stop you for 1 second, Lawrence?
Please go ahead.
I've got a new hydronym for you. How about for the reflecting pool? Let's go with what we call it down here in the DMV, the Strait of Warm Ooze. How about that?
You win. You win on hydronyms today. That's you've got it. Congressman, the real breaking news of the night, Judge Talwani in Boston has ruled in favor of California, in favor of Massachusetts, all the states, Illinois included, who have objected to this and issued a temporary restraining order that could, in and of itself, possibly, or let me put it to you as a question now, procedurally, might we now be in a spot where this will be blockable in terms of the next election?
Absolutely. I mean, the bad Supreme Court decision that just happened was based on ripeness, that there had not been a final rule issued. A final rule was issued by the Postal Service, and Judge Talwani was able to completely shut the thing down on a temporary restraining order, saying it is not the president's role, much less the role of the post office, to be dictating rules regarding how states send ballots to their own voters. That's an outrageous interference by the executive branch when the Constitution confers no role whatsoever on the president of the United States in the administration of congressional elections. And so it's true that Congress could regulate it under Article 1, Section 4. Congress could supplement the primary power of the states to administer elections, but Congress has not done that. Nobody has even claimed, the Trump DOJ is not even claiming that Congress has passed some law giving the president the power to override the judgment of the states. And that's just the beginning of it. I mean, really what this is the executive branch of government commandeering state election officials to compel them to turn over what their ballot envelopes are going to look like, their return ballot envelopes, and so on. And that was struck down in a case long ago called Prince versus United States, saying the federal government could not commandeer the time, the energy, and the resources of state government officials in order to implement a federal plan. In other words, they've got nothing to do with it. And even if Congress had acted this way, Congress could not do what the president's lieutenants are trying to do through the post office.
So as we go forward in this case, there are other lawsuits that were filed. We have one now that has the restraining order that applies to all of these states that are in this situation. What is left for Donald Trump to try here?
Well, they will keep appealing, no doubt. Every day that passes, every week that passes makes it even more difficult, even for the most extreme mega justices, to actually throw this terrible monkey wrench into the elections, because, it's a totally convoluted process where the states have to get their election materials approved by the Postal Service. Then they have to put a special barcode on every envelope going out to every voter who's approved by their process. The states have nothing to do with, so the states are not even going to be able to check to see that their voters are not being disenfranchised on a partisan basis by Trump's post office. Then they've got to go and educate all of their state election officials and then educate the public on how this thing works. And so they're going to have to tell people, no, you might be expecting an election ballot, but somehow you're not passing some test that the Postal Service is imposing on you, so you've got to go and vote now. Then they got to prepare for a lot more people at the polls. It's just chaos. It's precisely what the Supreme Court has at least occasionally said under the Purcell principle cannot be done against state election processes and against the voters.
So Donald Trump ordered the post office to not deliver mail. Don't deliver mail if we don't like the envelopes. Federal law makes it a requirement of the post office to deliver mail. The lawsuit that the state attorneys generals filed cites the specific federal law that says the Postal Service is under a legal obligation to deliver all of these envelopes, and the president simply cannot order them not to deliver these envelopes.
Well, that's absolutely right. And, what's comical about this is Donald Trump really thinks he's a king who can issue a royal edict in the form of an executive order. An executive order is essentially an interdepartmental memorandum saying, well, it's the policy of the executive branch to do X, Y, or Z. It doesn't overturn a federal regulation. It doesn't overturn or override a federal law, much less can it overturn or override the Constitution of the United States, which makes the states the primary administrators of congressional elections with only supplementary override authority given to Congress. And of course, Congress has not passed any of the nonsense they're talking about doing.
What else do you foresee that Donald Trump might try to do to interfere with this election?
Whatever he can do. I've been traveling around the country, Lawrence, and people say, is Donald Trump going to try to steal the election? I say, no, he's already trying to steal the election. That's all he thinks about every day, other than the reflecting pool and the Kennedy Center and whether he's going to bulldoze that the way he bulldozed the East Wing of the White House. I mean, as you pointed out at the beginning, it's utterly deranged, and it will be the subject one day of a great musical. But in the meantime, we've got to fight. We're in the fight of our lives here. And, somebody said to me when I was out in Michigan, in the 1st District of Michigan, where Callie Barr is running such an amazing campaign, is going to upset the Republican because of Trump's trade war against Canada. But somebody said to me, well, can you guarantee that we're going to have a free and fair election? And I just said, I'm sorry, if you want to guarantee, buy a toaster. But if you want a democracy, go out and fight for it every single day. That's where we are now.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you very much for starting off our coverage tonight.
You bet, Lawrence.